Yeah.
You got out of high school when you were, what, 16, you said?
Yeah.
And you went into the Ernest Williams?
I went to the Ernest Williams School of Music, which was a professional school and was affiliated with NYU, New York University. And all the academic work was done at NYU and all the music work was done at the Ernest Williams School of Music. And we were subjected to and were very fortunate to have been influenced by and to work with and study with and observe and play for some of the finest musicians in the world at that time, like Percy Grainger, Ferdy Grofé, Dr. Edwin Frankel Goldman, and just myriads of others. And all of our training there was aimed towards the profession. And those who didn't go into the profession and completed their academic work at NYU and became teachers, band directors, and professors, things
So
like
you
that.
went summer and winter?
I went to school summer and winter. The summer camp was in, well, the school was located in Brooklyn, close to Ebbets Field, which is no more. But home of the Brooklyn Dodgers. And the summer camp was in the Catskill Mountains between Saugerties, New York, and Woodstock, of Woodstock fame. And it was about halfway between. Beautiful, beautiful country. And we'd spend, I guess, 10 or 11 weeks there every summer. I think we had a week between the end of winter school and the beginning of summer camp, and a week between the end of summer camp and the beginning of the next year's winter school. So we were night and day, month after month, week after week, day after day, subjected to music. And one of the greatest periods of my life, knowing and studying with Ernest Williams. He's a fantastic teacher. And oh, what a bull of a man he was. I wish I could tell you here what some of the names he used to call me. But it's impossible. It wouldn't even go on home television.
But that man, as John has told me, required very little sleep. He did, you know, and he worked all the time on writing and arranging and stuff like
He'd go to bed for about 2 hours and then get up and go down to the studio and write the rest of the night. And then maybe sleep an hour before breakfast.
that. Yeah, Don told me that he used to wake him up in the middle of the night.
He'd wake me up 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and take me down to his studio to play 8 or 16 or 32 bars of something he had just written, and then raise hell with me because I didn't play it the way he wanted to hear it. And I couldn't even keep my eyes open much as to play the horn. But it was great, great training.
You told me a story once about one of the first times you played a solo. He wanted you to play a solo with the band. And I don't remember the story, but I remember it was a good story. Do you remember that one?
Oh, it was...
You didn't have it memorized and you had to...
It was the first... He lived in a cottage up in the woods on top of the hill. And he taught. He had a porch on 3 sides, a screened-in porch on 3 sides of his house. And he used to teach sitting out on the porch next to his desk in a rocking chair, you know. So the first day I went up was a Sunday for my first lesson, and he heard me play some things. And he pulled out a solo by Walter Rogers called Harpatara, an Irish melody. And he had me read through it. And reading was never any problem because being brought up in the town band back home, by the time you were 9 years old, you could read practically anything that was written. And if you didn't, you'd get a ruler across your knuckles from the guy sitting next to you. So it was like an apprenticeship in the band. So I read through this solo, and he said, well, Said, I'll tell you what, Donald. Never called me anything but Donald. He said, you work on this solo, and maybe sometime towards the end of the summer we might try it with the band. I was in seventh heaven to think that I'd get to play a solo maybe with that band, with all of the great players who went on in the business, you know, that were in the band. And I was sitting in the third row of trumpets, about fourth chair or something like that, at a cornet. So I left there, that was Sunday morning, and all through the woods, they had like the tops of music stands made out of wood, nailed onto trees. And everybody went out in the woods and practiced. Nobody practiced indoors unless it was raining. And I went to the furthest stand that I could find out in the woods, and I stayed there all afternoon. I missed dinner, stayed there, and left just so it was light enough to see to get back to camp. And I got back, and Mrs. Phillips, the dietitian, terrible cook. But anyway, she made me a sandwich. And the next day, next afternoon, we had band rehearsal. And got halfway through band rehearsal. And Ernest Williams said, Donald? I said, yes, sir. He said, do you have that solo ready? And I said, yes, sir. So he said, so I walked up in front of the band, shaking like a leaf. And he said, I think Leonard Smith, great soloist, with the Goldman Band and everything, said, get Donald to stand. I looked at him and I said, I have it memorized, Mr. Williams. Kind of looked at me like this. So he said, all right, Harpatara. And they had it in the book. So he started the thing and took the most ungodly tempos in it you ever heard. So fast, man, he was going to kill me. You know? Well, I think God was playing the horn that day because I didn't miss one note. And from that day on, I was his soloist. But I had worked on it until I knew it letter perfect and had memorized the thing. Of course, memorizing was never any real big problem for me, but I memorized the whole solo, and I guess it impressed him, and I was his soloist from that day on. And
There was another one I think Bill was getting at, if I recall correctly, because it's this one's a funny one. He was conducting some, I don't remember the number, it has a long, lengthy introduction before you come in. And that was the,
well, first of all, this was in Sunbury, Pennsylvania. We were on tour. And for my main solo, I played the first concerto for trumpet, which takes about 28 minutes to play. And I played it, and the audience applauded, and so Williams brought me back up to play an encore. I hadn't had enough 28 minutes, you know. So I was going to do, I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but the Rossini thing, Inflammatus from Stabat Mater, the oratorio. And it's got an introduction that must last 3 or 4 minutes. And it starts out, I don't sing too good, but it starts out, bum, ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum, and it goes on and on. And it finally comes to this.
there's a lot of ba-bums. One. On the G above the staff. Well, during the final movement of the concerto, my first valve was sticking a little bit. So while he's doing this big long introduction, I turned my back to the audience and I got out the valve and I spat on it. We all use saliva then, no oil.
I've seen you do that a million times
Yeah.
myself.
valve, put it back in,
They didn't
screwed it
have
on,
oil
and
in those
stood there
days.
like this through the whole introduction. And he comes, one, and he goes like this, and I went, nothing. And he's looking at me going, like he was gonna stomp on me, you know? And I looked at him and I went, so he stopped the band. And he made a speech to the audience in which he castigated me in every way possible. And then finally said, if Mr. Jacoby will be kind enough to take care of the trouble, we shall continue. Well, I took the valve out and spat on it again, put it back in, blew through the horn. I looked at him like this, you know. Do you think he would start? No. Boom, ba-boom, at the beginning. I had to stand there for about 4 minutes. And before that first note came out, I swear to God to you, I died 1,000 deaths. But finally, when that first note came out, I knew it was okay. Then I played it. And after I got through, we did the rest of the concert. And he caught me in the dressing room. And in front of the whole band, I have never have I been dressed down like that by anybody. It took me a year to get over it. Whew. If I had any dreams of being a good player or thinking I was a good player, they disappeared that night. But he sure did do it.
You told me a story one time about Jimmy Burke was playing
Oh,
with you. He wasn't he the first
God bless
cornet,
Jimmy.
you were first trumpet, or was the other way around?
Jimmy Burke
Yeah.
paid Mama the most beautiful compliment. Were you at the party when Jimmy was there?
Yes, I thought.
Jimmy and Ray
Yeah.
Sarah and Dalton Smith.
Yeah.
The day he left our house, he was there for 5 days. And the day he left, going out the front door, he said, you know, Dory, and he put his arm on her shoulder and he said, 2 years ago I took a vacation. And he had never met Dory up until this time. And he said, it was all by myself. First time I had ever done anything. He says, I got on a ship and we just toured. And he said, we went through the Straits of Gibraltar. And there was this huge thing. It was the most awe-inspiring thing I'd ever seen. But he said, you know, Dory, I never did meet the Rock of Gibraltar until I came here and met you. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, that's right.
But Jimmy played right in back of me, first chair, first cornet. And I was playing first chair solo cornet. And in this one number, Jimmy had a little 8-bar solo. And the first time he played it, he goofed it up pretty good. Of course, he was playing it like this because his right arm was useless. He was playing with his left hand like this. So anyway, he played the solo, and the chief just bawled him out something terrible. Well, the chief scared Ernest Williams, scared Jimmy so badly that Jimmy got a mental complex about this solo. Until one day in rehearsal, the chief is, pardon me if I stand up, but he has his hand in his pocket like this, or his left hand, and conducting like this, and he always closed his eyes, you know. And he's conducting with those fat fingers of his bouncing like this. And Jimmy played this solo, and I swear he played it like a dream. I never heard anything better. And the chief, without changing his expression or everything, said, well, Burke, still playing just as rotten as ever, ain't you? And I looked back at Jimmy, and Jimmy went like this. What do I have to do, you know? But that's the kind of guy the chief was. Never gave you credit for anything.